On a freezing night, Clara Johnson sat alone in her roadside diner, broke and ready to give up. The snowstorm outside was fierce, and not a single customer had come all day. Then, through the blizzard, she heard it, the sound of roaring engines. A group of bikers pulled in, cold and tired. Clara feared trouble, but instead found kindness. Snow pounded against the windows of the small roadside diner. The neon sign outside flickered weakly, barely cutting through the storm. Inside, Clara Johnson sat at a corner table with her account book open. She counted the money again, $52. That was all she had left. Across the counter, a foreclosure notice was pinned under a napkin holder. The bank had given her 7 days to leave. She stared at it for a while, then closed the book and leaned back in her chair. But before we dive into what happens next, I'd love to know, where are you tuning in from today? Drop your country in the comment below and please like the video. Thank you. Now let's continue. The diner was silent except for the ticking wall clock and the hum of the old refrigerator. The tables were clean, the floors freshly mopped, but no customers had come all day. Not even a trucker had passed through in hours. Clara looked around the room, the red vinyl seats, the faded photos, the pie display case that hadn't seen a pie in weeks. Every inch of the place reminded her of her husband, James, who had built the diner with her 10 years ago. He used to say the Emberlight would always be a home for anyone who needed warmth. Now it was just another forgotten stop on an empty road. She stood up and went to the window. Snow blew sideways across the parking lot, piling against the pump station. No headlights. No hope. Guess that's it, she whispered. She flipped the door sign from open to closed, the little bell jingling in the quiet room. It felt final. She lingered there for a moment, watching the snow swallow the road. Then a deep sound rose in the distance, low, steady, and growing louder. It wasn't thunder. It was engines. Clara frowned and stepped closer to the glass. Headlights appeared through the storm. First 2, then 5, then more. Motorcycles. A whole group of them, their lights cutting through the snow like fire. They slowed as they reached her lot, tires crunching in the ice. One by one, the riders parked and killed their engines. The noise faded into the wind. Clara's pulse quickened. She'd heard stories about biker gangs, troublemakers, drifters, worse. This was the last thing she needed tonight. The lead rider stepped forward, pulled off his helmet, and looked toward the diner. His face was lined, his eyes sharp but tired. For a moment, their eyes met through the glass. He lifted a hand, not in threat, but in greeting. Snow swirled between them. Clara hesitated. She could turn off the lights, pretend she wasn't there. But the storm was brutal, and those men looked half frozen. After a long moment, she unlocked the door and pushed it open. "Come on in," she said. "You look like you could use some heat." Cold air rushed in as the bikers stepped through the door, snow clinging to their jackets. The warmth of the diner hit them like a wave. The lead rider, tall, broad, with gray in his beard, gave Clara a nod. "Ma'am, we're sorry to barge in. Roads are closed. We just need a place to warm up." Clara looked them over. There were about a dozen men, all tired, faces red from the cold. Despite their rough look, they were polite. No shouting, no trouble. "I don't have much food left," she said carefully. "But there's coffee, and I can heat some soup." "That'll do just fine," the man said. "Name's Reed Lawson." She gave a small nod. "Clara." They settled into the booths, stamping their boots and rubbing their hands. The smell of wet leather and cold metal filled the air. Reed helped one of the younger bikers hang his soaked jacket by the heater. Clara poured coffee, her hands steadying as she worked. The men thanked her quietly. The diner filled with the sound of spoons clinking against mugs, simple, human noise that broke the silence of the storm. For the first time all night, Clara didn't feel completely alone. The storm outside kept pounding, but inside the diner, the air began to thaw. The men ate in silence at first, soup, bread, and endless cups of coffee. Clara moved between the tables, refilling mugs and clearing plates. She expected noise or rough talk, but they were surprisingly calm. One even offered to help wipe down a spill. Reed watched her work. "You run this place alone?" he asked. "Been that way a few years now," she said. "Business isn't what it used to be." He nodded slowly. "Roads are quieter these days. Folks don't stop much anymore." Clara smiled faintly. "Tell me about it." The younger biker, Danny, grinned from his booth. "Food's good though. Best I've had in weeks." That made her laugh softly, the first real laugh in days. As the hours passed, the men relaxed. They shared quiet stories about the road, about places they'd seen, about families waiting far away. One showed her a photo of his daughter, another fixed the flickering jukebox just to hear it play an old country tune. Clara listened and poured more coffee. The fear she'd felt earlier had faded. These weren't the kind of men the news warned about. They were just travelers caught in a storm. Outside, the wind howled on, but inside Emberlight Diner, the night finally felt warm. The storm didn't ease up. Snow beat hard against the windows, and the highway outside disappeared under white. The men were stuck for the night. Clara brought out extra blankets and turned up the heat. "You can stay till morning," she said. "No one's getting through that road tonight." Reed gave her a grateful nod. "You're a good woman, Clara." They pulled tables together and talked while the wind roared outside. Their voices filled the quiet space, rough, tired, but honest. One of the bikers, Marcus, told a story about his time driving trucks before joining the club. Another spoke about losing his job and finding freedom on the road. They weren't dangerous, they were just men looking for a place to belong. Clara listened as she cleaned behind the counter. She didn't say much, but every now and then she smiled or nodded. The room felt lighter, like people sharing warmth instead of surviving the cold. Reed's eyes landed on the foreclosure notice sitting near the register. He frowned. "You in some kind of trouble?" Clara paused, then shrugged. "Just money. Place has been dying for years. I'm holding on as long as I can." Reed was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You shouldn't give up yet. Roads have a way of bringing good folks back." She gave a small, tired smile. "Maybe." As the night stretched on, the snow kept falling, but inside, the diner felt alive again, full of laughter, voices, and the simple comfort of not being alone. It was past midnight when the talk quieted. Most of the men sat back with full bellies, sipping the last of the coffee. The jukebox hummed softly in the corner. Marcus leaned forward suddenly, squinting at Clara. "Wait a minute," he said. "You're Clara Johnson, aren't you? This diner's been here forever." Clara smiled faintly. "That's me. Been open about 10 years. He snapped his fingers. "I knew it. My brother stopped here once, years back. His truck broke down out front. You called an ambulance when he collapsed. Said a lady from this diner saved his life." Clara's hand froze around a coffee pot. "Your brother was Tom, the trucker with the heart problem." Marcus nodded. "Yeah. He's alive because of you." The room went quiet. Then one of the other men, Danny, looked up. "Hold on. You gave me food once. Couple years ago. I was broke, trying to get home. You didn't even ask me to pay." Clara looked at him, surprised. "You were that kid with the torn jacket." He laughed softly. "Didn't think you'd remember." One by one, more of them spoke. Stories surfaced, times she'd helped strangers stuck on the road, fed them, called for help, or just listened. She hadn't thought much of it then. To her, it was just what decent people did. Reed looked around the room, then back at her. "Seems like half of us have crossed your path before. You've done more good than you know." Clara didn't know what to say. She felt her throat tighten. "I was just trying to keep the place running," she said quietly. Reed gave her a small smile. "Maybe so. But you kept more than a diner running, Clara. You kept people going." The snow still fell hard outside, but inside, something shifted. The air felt warmer. The faces around her no longer looked like strangers, they looked like family. The diner had gone quiet. Most of the men sat back, relaxed and full, while the storm kept raging outside. The jukebox hummed softly in the corner. Marcus squinted at Clara from across the counter. "You ever help a trucker a few years back? Broke down out front, heart attack or something?" Clara looked up, surprised. "Tom? Big guy, red cap." Marcus grinned. "That's him. My brother. You called an ambulance and stayed with him till it came. He told me about you." Clara blinked, trying to hide her smile. "I remember that night. Glad he made it." Another voice came from a booth. It was Danny, the youngest. "You helped me too. 2 winters ago. I was broke and freezing. You gave me a free meal and some gas money." Clara stared at him. "That was you." He nodded. "Didn't forget it." A few more men joined in, each remembering someone she'd helped: a stranded rider, a man who lost his wallet, a family who stopped when their baby got sick. Every story led back to her. Clara stood there, speechless. She hadn't realized how many lives had passed through her doors. Reed smiled quietly. "Guess you've been our guardian long before tonight." For a moment, no one spoke. The storm howled against the windows, but inside, it felt calm. Clara's eyes filled, not from sadness, but from something she hadn't felt in a long time: hope. After midnight, the storm finally began to ease. The wind still moaned outside, but the snow was lighter now, soft, quiet, falling in slow sheets against the windows. Reed stood and stretched. "We'll head out once it clears a bit," he said. Then he paused, looking at the foreclosure notice still sitting by the register. He picked it up, read it, and frowned. "This place means something," he said. "You shouldn't lose it." Clara gave a tired smile. "Appreciate that, but talk doesn't pay bills." Reed didn't argue. He just pulled out his phone, stepped outside, and made a few calls in the cold. The other men watched but didn't ask questions. Clara poured one last round of coffee, trying not to think about what came next. She figured they'd finish up, thank her, and ride off into the dark. But when headlights began to glow in the distance again, more than before, she froze. Dozens of bikes and trucks were rolling down the road, lights cutting through the snow. They filled the parking lot, one after another. People climbed out, truckers, riders and travelers, faces she half recognized from years gone by. "Clara Johnson," one man called, stepping forward. "You helped my wife when she went into labor right outside this place." Another waved a gloved hand. "You fixed my flat tire and wouldn't take a dime." Reed came back inside, smiling at her stunned face. "Told you roads bring good folks back." Within minutes, the diner was packed. Laughter, hugs, warm breath fogging the windows. They brought food, envelopes, cash, even supplies. Someone started a fire in the outdoor drum barrel to keep the parking lot warm. Danny grinned at her. "Looks like you got your customers back." Clara couldn't speak. Tears slid down her cheeks as Reed handed her an envelope. "We all chipped in," he said. "Enough to cover the debt and keep the lights on." For a long moment, she just stared at him. Then she laughed through the tears. "You boys really are angels, huh?" Reed shook his head. "No, ma'am. Just folks who remember kindness." Outside, the snow stopped completely. The night was still, and the diner glowed brighter than it had in years. By dawn, the storm was gone. The world outside the diner was clean and quiet, blanketed in silver snow. The first sunlight spilled across the parking lot, catching on dozens of bikes and trucks lined neatly in rows. Clara stepped outside, her coat pulled tight around her shoulders. The cold bit her cheeks, but she hardly felt it. She looked out over the scene, the people, the machines, the footprints leading up to her door, and smiled. Reed stood beside her, holding a steaming cup of coffee. "You did good last night," he said. She shook her head. "You all did." He handed her a second envelope. "This one's from us, the Iron Souls. It's more than money. Plans, materials, help with repairs. We're putting this place back on the map." Clara opened it and saw blueprints, hand-signed notes, and a list of names offering labor and supplies. Her eyes filled again. "I don't know what to say." Reed smiled faintly. "Say you'll keep cooking." She laughed, wiping her face. "That I can do." As the sun climbed higher, the men started their engines, one by one. The sound echoed through the valley, strong and steady. Before riding off, Reed turned back and said, "We'll be back, Clara. Count on it." She waved as they disappeared down the highway, their taillights glowing red against the white snow. The lot slowly emptied, but the warmth they left behind stayed. Clara stood there for a long moment, watching the quiet road. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like she was standing at the end of something, but at the beginning. When she finally went back inside, she flipped the sign on the door. It no longer said closed. It said open. And this time, she knew it was going to stay that way. 6 months later, the Emberlight Diner was alive again. The cracked walls had been repainted, the old neon sign fully restored, and the parking lot freshly paved. A new sign hung under the main one, in partnership with the Iron Souls Motorcycle Club. Every day, the place was full. Truckers, bikers, and travelers stopped by for coffee, pie, and stories. Some came just to meet the woman everyone called the Angel of Route 46. Clara moved easily between tables, smiling and chatting. Her steps were lighter now, her laughter louder. She kept a photo of that snowy night pinned near the register. A crowd of faces, all grinning, with Reed standing beside her. Sometimes, when the evening sun dipped low and the headlights of passing vehicles glowed on the road, she'd step outside and breathe in the cool air. The hum of engines would roll in from the distance, and she'd know more travelers were coming. She'd smile, flip on the neon sign, and say softly to herself, "Lights on. Coffee's hot. You've got a home here." The wind would carry her words down Route 46, where the night was never truly dark, because Emberlight still burned. If you enjoyed this story, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us share more inspiring stories like this one. Don't forget to turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. And tell us in the comments what part of this story touched you the most. Thank you for watching, and remember, a little kindness can change everything.